Mr. Mendoza, how are you?
Fine. I'm just not watching. I'm not looking on my belt behind, so I'm a little bit.
Oh yeah, man. You never sent me one, man. You never sent
I'm
me
looking at
one.
the BC, and that one's.
You never sent me one, man. Mauricio, luckily Mauricio, even the IBO sent me a belt and a medallion. Mauricio gave me the medallion too. We're waiting on Gilberto. Now that you're taking away all these interims, you can send me those. Nobody's using those anymore. But thank you for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the president of the WBA, Gilberto Mendoza. I won't bore you with any of my questions. I know that the people have some. So to my co-hosts, Micah or Alex, if you want to go ahead and start off as I pull up the people's posts. If you don't have anything,
How
I
you
got it
doing,
pulled up.
Gilberto? It's Alex here with the Boxing Voice.
Hi, Alex. How are you? Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. As of lately, there was a lot of pressure put on the WBA. How important was it for you to have a swift, what can I say, restructuring?
Resolution? Okay.
It's rather. I wouldn't. Look, we have some pillars in the WBA. I know we were criticized regarding certain practices, but we have always think about the systematic development of boxing. We have always think about the rights of the boxer. We have always think about trying to innovate and trying also to balance a little bit the fairness of a worldwide sanctioning body. Rather than the pressure, I would tell you that first of all, there were plans in my head, and actually, I announced it a long time ago. I think it was in 2016 where we were trying to implement this one champion route that we were thinking about it. And personally, I have a lot of passion for boxing. I come from a boxing family, of course. I think all of you know that my father was president for 33 years. But rather than that, I was taught at home to protect the sport. I know, and I just don't want to come into the reasoning why we did it or why we don't did it. I think it was a matter of balancing chances to the non-privileged boxers that are not in the biggest markets of boxing, which are England and the United States. But I think I had said a lot about that before, and restructuring honestly was really easy. It was not so difficult. I had plans in the past. I had them in writing, and it happened. After this the fight and after this turmoil and after this storm, if you want to call it this way, that I said, look, if that's what the fan wants, if that's what the media wants, let's give them what they need. Because at the end of the day, it's about the fan and the box now. And that was exactly. I know Samson came here, and I know Samson is against it because Samson tried to protect the Latino fighters or the I would say non-privileged. Non-privileged. That's the way I would call them. Actually, I was speaking yesterday to a promoter in Panama. He's well known. His name is Rogelio Espino, and he says, the interim titles. I know everybody hates. So that was our chance to have at least a bit at the big markets or against the TV. So it's kind of like it's not that I'm not against the multiple titles. Fans and media are against them, and they're an important part of the sport. And I neglect them for a while. So there you have it. I'm going to do it. I don't know how long it will take to have one champion per division, but we're taking the steps as fast as we can. Actually, yesterday's move was very tough personally because I was thinking about the fighters too. But It's not that much to say. I have said it before in so many different ways. So it's just like, I'm here to answer any question you have. If they're gonna come back about the fees and the stuff, I have said it all. But I like to be face to face to people, and I like to express myself, and I like people to know who I am, and I like to people not to personalize the WBA in my face, because WBA is an institution. It's part of the sport. It was the first sanction. We took different practices from what people have a concept of boxing in a different way, and that's the way it is. I'm here to tell that I have the same passion as you have. I have the same passion as my haters, the same one. But in a different way and from a different perspective, because I'm inside, and I'm not inside the business, because the business belongs to the promoters and fighters and managers. I'm inside a sanctioning organization, which I don't like to be called a sanctioning organization, because I think we have to start acting like international federations, and that means we have to have we have to be the balance, or like the scale at some point between the fighters, the managers, and the promoters, in order to have like more chances to everybody. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you that the influence of TV, promoters, and big investors that come in the sport, they kind of create a tendency. But this is being changed. I'm now wearing a different hat. Taking a lot of your concerns, because I know I understand the three of you don't like the multi-titles, and I respect that. I'm honored with it. But I'm here. I'm here for you guys, and it was a real pleasure that you invite me. I was actually honored when I got your text and everything. And I'm sorry I couldn't do it last week, but I was just preparing to all these changes.
No problem. We're thankful that you took out the opportunity. So when you say that you are prepared for one title per division, are you also planning to get rid of the regular as well? Because it is our understanding that the interim is being abolished, and every interim champion is now considered a mandatory to the regular champion. But is the regular title also, will that be taken away as well?
Look, I will not promise you that, because I have part of my board concerned about one thing, and like looking for an alternative. I'm going to tell you three divisions right now. I'll tell you super middleweight, which is Canelo is there. I'll tell you heavyweights. You got Joshua Fury, coming up sooner or later. And I will tell you bantamweight, Inoue. Those three divisions, having those champions, trying to, I will say, to go to the next level, because that's the way I see it. Like facing the best opponents, like facing the other champions, or maybe taking risk at different weights except the heavyweights. My board still is having doubt about what kind of alternative we're going to have for the rest of the rated challengers. What are we going to be able to do with this? Are we going to call it gold like we had? Are we going to do an eliminator that that TV don't pay the same amount of money, but not concerning about the fees we're going to get, concerning about the fighters that can get involved. So yes, it is. We are going to eliminate as much as regular right now that we can. Actually, we ordered Colbert against Gutierrez in the 130 division. Brandon Figueroa, as soon as he steps in the ring, the title will be vacant. The same situation happened with Casimiro. I think we order another fight. We order Kyoguchi to face Esteban Bermudez. So, we're going to come up, sooner or later, we're going to have only one champion. We're just, as I told you before, there's, because I promised and I said that we're going to reduce all the titles to one champion. That was my proposal to the committee, but they still are just doubting about the situations where you have a fighter that's an elite fighter, and that for some reason is popular. For some reason, he has an impact in the sport that he can improve the image of it. That's where that's where we're having some kind of trouble right now regarding that. But I will always. I'm going to push forward for the one champion in each divisions. The thing and the feeling is that they have heard from different sides. Like if you have a fighter like Canelo, the rest of the fighters are not going to have a chance. So it's kind of going that way to tell you what exactly is going on. But first of all, let's clean everything up, and then I'll figure out whatever will happen in certain divisions. And for the regular title, it's going to take me a little bit longer than the interim champion. There's going to be a lot of box off being called up sooner or later through different resolutions.
Can you check if you're on Wi-Fi? You're chopping up just a bit, but we did hear the answer and appreciate it.
Okay.
I guess
that's just so I'm on the right track, right? It sounded a little bit like a franchise title would be in play in order for you say any fighter that's made an impact in the sport.
No. What I mean is when you have a popular fighter like Canelo, a fighter that brings something positive for boxing. When you have a Canelo, when you have a Joshua, when you have a Pacquiao, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, and if you have, for something, everybody wants them to go for a next level all the time. You're taking different chances to for the sport, and somehow I'm not telling you we're not going to make no franchise, we're not going to do no super, we're going to stay with what we have right now. But what I'm telling you is my board is having trouble to accept having them and denying opportunities for the rest of the fighters, because it's not like you go back and the network is going to buy you the number 13 against number 14. That doesn't happen anymore. That doesn't happen anymore. They're not going to fight the 5 against the 3, and that would be a huge fight. Perhaps it's a huge fight, but because there's not a title involved, there's not enough money for both camps. So that's what I'm telling you. That's the only concern my board is having right now. But I'm pushing forward, like saying, look, we have done this for years. Fans and media hate it, so we got to go back to one champion. And from that point on, let's figure out what we can do. Because when I tell you that we have to act like an international federation, it's like we have to act like FIFA in soccer, for example, our decision have to be binding, and our decision have to have some kind of power inside the business, but it's not happening that way. And if I can go a little bit farther, my plans as president of this sanctioning body is trying to find different streams of revenue that don't come from the sanctioning fees. But that's where a big and huge problem is happening right now. I'm working on certain sponsorships in several countries in order to do certain plans that we have. We have WBA Academy that has programs for trainers, for judges, for fighters, financially also, that how to handle their money or what nutrition, if they want to go that way. We do. We also have some social programs, but but anybody has it. We work with the amateurs. We have a tournament called WBA Future Champions, where we try before the big events that in the amateurs we try to bring as much as national teams that they don't have a chance to fight outside. Like for example, we had one in February in Colombia. And we were able to bring Uruguay, who didn't have a chance to go out, and we paid for the tickets, and we paid for the food and everything from those teams. We brought a couple of guys from Kazakhstan. Italy was here. We had several things, so we gave an experience back to the amateurs. So it's kind of a lot of programs going on that I've never expressed, or perhaps my media team needs to find a different communication strategy to go out. But there's several things we do, and I want not to be tied to the sanctioning fees only. That's one of the things that I guess is pretty interesting to share with you guys.
Definitely. Well, that is going to be something that people would love to hear, that sanctioning fees can be I guess collected from a different source, versus the fighters, because a lot of these fighters on the way up, like you said, they're not making substantial amounts of money. But can I get your educated guess on where do you think Gervonta Davis fights at? Because I know that as the president, you guys sent him a letter, and he must decide which title he's going to defend. And he's a champion with you at the WBA at 130, 135, and even 140.
I wish I could answer you that right now, but I just received a request for an extension for next week in order to decide which weight class it was going to stay.
So that's breaking news,
they're working on several fights. I would love him to fight. I would love him to see with Teofimo, for example. I think that will be a good way. I think if you look at the way he has been developing his career, I believe that Tank should do a little bit more in the lightweights. Lomachenko, for example, maybe a Linares fight, a Haney fight. There's a lot of fights first. Win 135 before going to 140. That's the way I look at it. But I mean, I cannot put a gun into him when I allowed him to have 2 titles. So I have to wait until 3 titles. I have to wait until he comes back to me and tells me. But if you want me from my point of view, I think he still needs to do a lot of things in the lightweights. There's a lot of contenders there that may give them a good fight for the fans and for himself too.
Is there any rule in the WBA that could enforce Tank's position at 135 to enforce a fight with Teofimo? Because he's the super champion.
Yes, actually, as you know, I don't know if you had a copy of the resolution we did. We released yesterday, but that basically is like the guidelines of what's going to happen. We have to go division by division, and if you look at it, in this way, Gervonta is the mandatory for Teofimo. That would be, that's what we have to call right now. Like, if you want to go and just get one champion, I have to call Teofimo to fight Gervonta Davis. The thing is, will they accept? That's the other part, because what usually happens is one of them will vacate the titles when it's not in the path of what they think or what the team, planned for them.
Now, if you were to call that mandatory, that wouldn't happen till what, a year from now? Because Teo does have the IBF, and don't you guys as sanctioning bodies take turns?
He has. I got to look at it, but I'm going to reduce the time because we need to clean up everything. It's going to be just enough. He usually has 18 months, but I'm going to reduce it a little bit, perhaps a year or less. I have to look, since he won the title, we got to go back when he won the title to Loma. So that was last year, right? I just don't remember exactly the date. Mm-hmm. I don't have it with me, but it might be, around the time to order it. It's not at this point. We are making some kind of flexibility regarding those rules, and we're gonna take special rules in order to go back to one champion. The same way we did yesterday is going to be applied for this regular against supers.
So Teofimo fought Vasyl Lomachenko October 17th of 2020. So yeah,
2020. We're close to a year. So so we may say that the fight has to happen in 4 months, 6 months. I cannot tell exactly the timing because we have the committee for that. So, but it should. I have to see also the mandatory rotations among the sanctioning bodies.
Yeah, that's what I mean, because the IBF has theirs with Camboso called already. So
yeah, and then I guess I got to see in which order we are, and from that point on, I will make a decision.
And to be clear, are you now saying that all super champions will have a mandatory?
Yes, they should. They usually have a mandatory. We make a resolution and put them in the mandatory, and usually it's a regular champion. That's what happened in the past. They have a resolution for each weight class. That happened in the past. I'm just sharing with you. Perhaps that was not communicated, but that happened in the past. And with all these champions, obviously, it made a lot of confusion to know who was a mandatory or not. But yes, and after at this moment, when we're talking, the championship committee has been working in each resolution for each weight in order to call certain box office ones and then call some fights in the other ones. And that's why I told you that I received a letter today, an email, asking for an extension about Gervonta Davis in order to decide which title he was going to have. But I don't have an answer yet. But yes, everybody will have to fight in this way. It's for example, like I go to 105 minimum weights. The Thai boy, it's Nijo Tren, I think so. I think it's pronounced that way. We're going to do a box off between Eric Rosas, the Colombian Pac-Man, against Saludar from Philippines. And then Byron Rojas is going to fight Benavides, who was a gold champion. And the winner of those fights faces the Thai guy, Nijatron. Yes, that, for example, I'm just putting you an example. That one, I'm just sharing with you information that will come out tomorrow. That division was set like that. So each division, we have a series of box off. And if they don't do it, perhaps they will lose the chance. We may call the next available contender. Whoever has a title is going to be vacated. That's the way it's going to work.
So when do you expect mandatory to be called for Anthony Joshua? Because obviously Mahmoud Char was the champion there for many, many years, and then now Trevor Bryant was the interim, and he has been, is now the regular. So that particular division hasn't had a mandatory from the WBA in quite some years.
We're in court right now.
Oh,
we're in court right now, yes, and soon there's going to be another lawsuit. We're in court with Don King sue us because basically he is demanding to remove Char as his mandatory for Bryan as championing races. Basically, that's in court right now, and soon there's gonna be a lawsuit to King from Char. I just don't know the reason exactly. It's going to come up sooner or later, so we're gonna get involved. That division is really tangled. To be honest with you, it's really messy right now. And a box-off could work, but I cannot tell you exactly what's going to happen right now. That's why I cannot have too many comments on that division. It's it's very hard to tell you what's going to happen or not. I mean, we're in the hands of a judge right now.
So at 168, obviously Canelo's going for undisputed. That fight is signed, sealed, and delivered for November 6th. But David Morrell is your regular champion. And obviously you're saying regulars are now the mandatory for the super. Is that something that you plan on calling in the next 12 months, or is that 18 months out?
We're going to be, I guess just looking at it, that's what's supposed to happen. I guess in this division, we're going to call a box off, just looking at it, because I'm just looking at all the contenders out there. We may call a box off between Morrell, Chudinov, Aidos, the boss only. Actually, they're going to fight for a mandatory right now. They're going to fight. Aidos is going to fight Allen, and we might do a box off there. It will depend in each division, and the championship committee is now taking advice from people outside in order to make something that may happen. So I cannot tell you exactly if we're going to do this one or that one. But just look, what I can guarantee you is it's going to be a box up between at least 4 fighters or 6.
Well, you got some very highly recognizable names in that top 15 of the WBA 168. David Benavidez is number 2.
Yeah, and then I forgot that Morrell has to fight. Ryder.
Oh, already.
So that might be part of it. That's what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at it. I'm just checking everything out, and perhaps I'm just going to put an example that something that could happen. Morrell may fight Ryder, and Aidos is going to fight Allen, and Benavidez could fight Chudinov, something like this. And the winners, will meet at the end of the day, and one of them will be the mandatory at the end, and obviously that one will be called the regular champion, and then they will have to fight. That will be the mandatory for Canelo. I'm just putting you examples so people can understand better. Graphically, it's easier.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we got 4 more. Doomy, you got the Patreon pulled up?
Yeah, I got them up.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Gilberto, this is from our most knowledgeable fans in the TVV community. The first guys I want to ask you a question is Brew in the 504. He's from New Orleans, and he says, can we have your word that the WBA will not create any more titles?
Well, you have my word, but sometimes there is a solution in lawsuits, to be honest with you. That long time ago, I think we had the recess was used because I forgot his name right now, Travis Sims. But that's the only way. It has to be something reasonable if it's going to be created. That's why I cannot give you the word 100%. But from my side, I'm cleaning everything up.
All right. Next one's coming from Mr. James Benitez, and he says, "Here's a hypothetical: if no one bids on the Bud versus Porter, would Porter get skipped and the fight goes to the next fighter in line? How does the WBA deal with this situation?"
Okay, but that's not my organization, so it's you got to be clear. If it happens in the WBA, we have to go for the. You're talking about a purse bid. You're talking about a purse bid.
Yes.
I think so.
Yes, because Crawford and Porter are going to purse bid September 2nd.
Okay, yeah. Well, the process there is like, but it's like if he's telling me like, is the promoter fails to participate or what?
He says if no one bids on the Bud versus Porter, I guess if no one bids on it, would Porter get skipped and the fight goes to the next fighter in line?
Okay. If it's in the WBA, we have to call for a next purse bid. That's what happens, And if that, hypothetically, if that one, for some reason, that one is also nobody bids on it, I think we go for the minimums right now. But we can't keep the mandatory fighters. Definitely, you have to respect that.
Okay. Next one's from Mr. Ardor.
Before you move on,
Before
you move on, I want to know your thoughts on the WBO live streaming the purse bid. To my knowledge, that's the first time a sanctioning body live streams a purse bid. How do you feel about that? And will that be something that you adapt? Do you think that people who are fans of the WBA would like to see you live stream whatever purse bid? I mean, I'm going to be watching. I never seen that before, and this is a very intriguing purse bid.
That's the main event of negotiations.
We did in the past, I think so.
A purse bid?
Yeah, but because it wasn't in convention. And the convention was being live streamed.
Okay.
But there's no production there, so it's very hard to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But I would. We have to be open. That's basically a public. That basically is a public act. Why not? I would do it. I don't have a problem. We do the conventions open for people, for everybody, anyone who's who has some kind of interest in boxing can walk in a convention and just sit down and listen. Have to pay like a fee of participation, but it's very small, and they can listen to it. I don't have no problem to fans to see the process. I mean, it's not so complicated at the end of the day. It's just 2-3 promoters bidding for a fight, and we just have to open. They have to follow rules and regulations, and then just open an envelope, and then we just have to say things. There's nothing there that can, it's only the only problem. Like if you're a foreign fighter and you're a Latino fighter and they know how much money you're going to earn, perhaps you are a kind of risk when you live in, outside of America. That's the only thing.
All right. Do me next one.
Next one is Mr. Ardor, and he says, thanks for coming on the show, Mr. Mendoza. I like the direction the WBA is heading. My question is, Leo Santa Cruz is the WBA super featherweight champ. He hasn't fought at that weight for over 2 years. Why wasn't Leigh Wood elevated to super champ after beating Shukan, or Santa Cruz ordered to fight Wood to consolidate that division?
We have to do that too. Same example as the other ones. But we have to go case by case. And actually, we sent a letter to Leo Santa Cruz regarding exactly that same question, if he was going to fight again in the featherweights, because they already know, all promoters already know that we're trying to clean all divisions. So I'm waiting for answers in that specific case. Actually, to be honest with you, I want to call Leo myself to find out what are his plans.
And I guess it was a two-part question. The other part was, why wasn't Leigh Wood elevated to super champ after beating Shukan?
Because Santa Cruz is a super champion. That's a straight answer. I know.
All right, so the next one's coming in from Big Casual, and he says, thank you for getting rid of the interim WBA belt. One step closer to making the sport of boxing great again. Since Gervonta Davis holds WBA belts in 3 different divisions, any word on which weight class he will decide to keep his belt in?
Yeah, he answered that already.
I think we went over that too.
Yeah.
And next one is from James Valdez in San Antonio, Texas. And he says, question asked earlier. Maybe you can help answer. Why do other sports fans, football, basketball, etc., don't have to pay like boxing fans do?
Yeah, that's crazy. Just this year alone, it's $540 in pay-per-views. That's a lot.
Well, it depends, Well, I don't know. I have to pay to see. I'm a big baseball fan, and I have to pay for the app in order to get all the games, And I think NFL also has an app. It depends on which way, but to pay for each fight is difficult. I also see the fact that we don't have seasons. We don't have seasons that you can pay from the beginning to the end, and then we have major fights usually, and boxing always is going low on popularity, because if you have seen all the time, there was a time you had De La Hoya, Vargas, Trinidad, you got all of them at the same time, and then we start lacking of those stars, and then Mayweather came in. Now we have Canelo, but it's like it's like a curve going up and down all the time. That's the way I see it, and sometimes I'm a huge boxing fan, of course, and it affects us, But look, here in Latin America, just to have the view, the fans can see it for free, because usually countries buy the rights to do to have the fights, and then you have the cable TVs that also broadcast the fights. That's a different story. We're talking about Americans, and perhaps we are talking about England, that they do the pay-per-views. But here, what happens is that a certain TV buys the TV rights, and you as a fan can look at it in national TV without no problem. That was some kind of advantage we have over here regarding that.
Wow, yeah. I know UK spends a lot less on boxing than the American public does. I think the next one was from Line 6 Reed, and he says, have you ever seen a fighter as great as Boot Ennis? That's Jaron Boot Ennis. He's one of the community members that says that Jaron Boot Ennis is the next champion. Speaks very highly of him. So he wants to. Yeah.
Well, I think to be honest, I haven't seen him too much. I haven't seen Ennis too much. But he's a heavyweight, right?
No, welterweight.
Welterweight. Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen that guy.
Line 6 Reed. Sorry. He's a great.
I'm gonna look at it. I'm taking notes. I want to see it now.
No, he's an awesome fighter, Gilberto. Awesome fighter. I believe also that he's the next champ. Absolutely. As soon as he's given that opportunity, I'm pretty sure he'll do very well. Next one's coming in from Jab Left Hook, and he does say, how does it feel for fans to recognize the WBA as the We Benefit Al organization? Thanks for cleaning house.
Yo, did you know that people were saying that? Did that get to you? Did it reach you that they were calling the WBA what benefits Al? Like WBA.
Did it affect me?
No, did it reach you? Did it reach you?
Yes, of course.
Did you hear about it?
If you just take a look at my Twitter, and you will know all the kind of things. I do read them. It's just like times, there are days I don't have the skin for it, but there are days I can read it all. I don't have no problem. Actually, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and we had a different view. I'm doing what is expected to many fans. So,
but honestly,
actually, when I was walking around the MGM, and I get some kind of insults sometimes, and I don't like that. But people act the way they want to act. It's like they call you bandidos, they call you crooks.
Oh man,
Rob. But you had Lou here. Lou here calls us the bandidos, but not only the WBA, he calls all San bodies the bandidos. So it's kind of like at some point you get used to it, but I don't like it. Obviously, I don't like it. I mean, it makes you think, and it makes you think twice everything that you do. And I guess I have a lot of passion, as I said at the beginning, for this sport, and I want to change things for good, and I don't want to have that image with the fans.
Well, I want to ask, it didn't bother though, right? Because I'm looking at it from a business standpoint, right? I like to consider ourselves one of the biggest podcasts. So if a promoter came at me and said, listen, man, I got 200 plus fighters that I would like you to talk about them regularly, and it meant financial gain from me, I don't see what's the problem. You understand? Al has a lot of fighters. So I don't know. I just wanted to know, did you take that, I guess, negatively? Because again, for your business, for the WBA and the growth of it, you do need fighters. And he has a plethora of them.
What happens there is at that point, if I'm working with a promoter that has 200 fighters, I'm going to be kind of comfortable. But then you're looking at the reaction the people he's having. You're called the voice of the people, right? So you start listening to what they're saying, and then you want to have like a different image. And as I told you, look, it might sound hard, but I just don't want to sit down and just give away a belt like it's happening at this point with all sanctioning bodies, including us. What is happening? You have to, basically, you have 2-3 promoters. They come to you, either a convention or they give you calls and they say, look, my fighters are the best. You have to sanction my fights. Everybody's kind of in a different island right now. So everybody comes to you and tells you, look, I have this amount of money. I have these fighters. I have these fighters. In the past, it was Bob Arum and Don King that came into you saying, I have the best fighters in the world. Those should be your champions, So if you look at it in a business perspective, you're not going to care of what they're saying as long as your business is running. You're not going to care about that. But I want to make a difference, to be honest. You can't, I couldn't, I couldn't continue neglecting people or their opinions. And I'm being, they call me, so many names, Reg, WBA. They have a hashtag for that one. WBA is a joke.
Hashtag, oh my God.
They have a hashtag. Yeah, they have a lot of stuff like that.
Hey, what happened?
Yeah, so at one point, that's when I was telling you, okay, I just don't want to depend 100% of the sanctioning fee of the promoters. We have to have some kind of leverage to say no to certain things, because when you start working with one promoter very close, obviously you're going to get more sanctioning fees. I'm not going to lie to no one. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie to about that. And then it's easier to deal with one promoter than having 3 or 4 fighting each other for their rights, because it usually brings you lawsuits, attorneys coming back and forth. And that was the time before. That happened before, in 2006, there were two German companies, Sauerland and Universal, and you had Golden Boy also, and you had Top Rank, and you had all these conventions. They were really fun because they look like a courthouse at some points. Everybody's fighting for the right of their fighters, and that's one thing. I was just, we have to make like the balance in this sport. I think we're too much sanctioning bodies, by the way. I think we're too much, because that confuses the fan too. Okay, I'm going to clean up my house, but then you have to ask the fan. He has to memorize 4 champions per division, and then you create the lineal champion. So it's not only about us. It's not only about us. There are certain parts. Actually, I saw today on a website an article by I think it was in Boxing Scene. It's in the top of the news. I like that article, despite I was being criticized a little bit, but I like the perspective the guy put into it. So it's kind of, I just don't know, exactly if, I don't know if the fans or you media, you're going to like to have one champion, one unified champion per division, for example, because that's also denying opportunities for the rest of the fighters. It's kind of,
theoretically, the way we believe it would work is that the number 1 contender gets to fight the champion, and the champion has 12 months to fight the next number 1 contender.
I know that, but look, you have 4 sanctioning bodies. You get, let's say you have a fighter that unifies the 4 titles. When are the mandatories when each mandatory is going to get their chances? How long? Is the champion is going to be all the time mandatory, back-to-back mandatories, and you're not going to be able to do fights that the public really likes? That's another thing you got to look at. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it is the way it is. We're not going to change too many things, And when I told you that we perhaps are too much sanctioning bodies, is because of that, because that also generates confusion besides anything. If you ask a regular sport fan, which happens to me with my friends, and when I used to go to school, and when I was working in a different company, I was not working in boxing, they used to ask you what the first question they ask you is, why are there 4 champions when they have to be only 1? It's kind of, and then I take responsibility for confusing everybody else more. I'm not going to tell you that, but at the end of the day, boxing is the kind of thing that you have to understand everything, and you just accept that there are 4 champions, but that's it. At one point, we met in the 2014. Mauricio from WBC, Daryl, IBF. Paco didn't attend, but he sent somebody, and then my dad and I, that time attended. We were trying to do something in order to get some kind of tournament, in order to have one champion, so the people would have an opportunity. But we were thinking of having it for a regular in each sanctioning body to be the mandatory those days, but that never happened. And the rest is what's going on right now. It's just a lot of promoters, a lot of TV outlet coming out or streaming outlet coming out and putting a lot of money into it and trying to get as much fights as they can.
We had one last one from Mr. Boston Jared. KO punch, Mr. Gilberto. You got it? All right. Boston Jared says, if Triple G versus Murata gets canceled or delayed, will you call for Lara versus Murata since Lara is in mandatory position?
But Lara, we're waiting an answer for him too. It's tending to go to 154, to be honest. There's a tendency to do that. Then we should go then to Eubank. That's the case.
All right. That was the last of the questions from the Patreon. Yes.
No, that's it, man. Mr. Mendoza, I want to thank you, obviously, for coming on the show and answering the questions and giving us an update on everything that is the WBA. We appreciate you coming on. If you want to give out your social media, you can do so at this time. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you one more time.
I could be finding social media by Gilbertico WBA. And by the way, I saw Jaron Ennis. I think he's a good fighter. He's a hard puncher. Yeah, I saw him against Lipinets. I was just checking out his. Yes, I like him too. I don't know if he's going to become the biggest star, but he has all the tools.
Yeah, keep your eye on that guy, Gilberto.
Okay. I got a question from Bill Haney. He said, it was a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Mendoza, at the Linares fight. Were you surprised at how good my son Devin Haney is, and when can he fight your WBA super champion? Please explain the procedure that champions in other organizations have to do to challenge for the prestigious red and black belt. Thank you very much. So he's saying, as a champion, is there something that he, as a manager father, can do to try and petition to you, the president of the WBA, to, mandate a fight with the super champion in the WBA and the WBC champion, Devin Haney? I guess that's Teofimo. He's asking for Teofimo.
I would love to see that fight. Actually, yes, I was really surprised. First of all, hi, Bill. It was a pleasure meeting you too. I heard a lot about you, and I know we share a lot of good things for boxing. And Devin looked impressive against Linares. Linares had never been handled like your son did. He outboxed him. He was faster. He had more skills. He had a better boxing IQ. And Linares is a great boxer, but I was surprised. I was really surprised by your son because I think he stepped up in levels, and he showed the best thing, that he has heart and that he can take a punch. That was the most important thing I saw from that fight. I love the way he jabbed. I love the way he moved in the ring. So I like a lot his footwork. Regarding that, I have been asked several times. Currently, there is no way to mandate a fighter to, there's nothing in the rule other than a good conversation with the other sanctioning body in order to make them force the fight, or both agree that we can do mandatories together, like Teofimo fighting David Haney, for example. I will have, in this case, to speak with Mauricio Suleiman and see if we can work it out, talking with the promoters and making some kind of a special ruling. But there's nothing in the rules that will force a champion to face another champion, unfortunately. I would love to have a better answer for that, but obviously I want your son to be my champion too.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Haney. That is your answer. Gilberto, man, thank you one more time. We appreciate your time, and till the next one.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
President of the WBA, Gilberto Mendoza.
Yo, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and share. As always, if you want to support us to the next level, head over to the Patreon. patreon.com/ThaBoxingVoice. We have tons of exclusive from Border Wars, Entitled, betting shows. The list goes on and on and on. But in addition to that, if you guys have questions for fighters, trainers, and promoters, this is where you can submit them. We will run out, get these questions answered, and put it back on the show just for you guys. Appreciate it. Peace.